Welcome to the deep dive. We take stacks of sources and really pull out the key nuggets of knowledge, the insights for you.
Hmm.
Today, we're diving into something that feels like it's everywhere lately. Narcissism. In conversations, the media, relationships.
Yeah.
It's often talked about as this, epidemic, this big problem of the selfishness of others.
That exact phrase, yeah.
Our source today is this really fascinating essay. It tackles that fear head on, this anxiety about narcissism.
And really questions it.
It does. It questions if this epidemic is even real and uncovers some, frankly, surprising things about how we see other people and maybe how we see ourselves.
Right.
So, our mission today, cut through that noise, look at the evidence, and ask, does this narcissism script tell us more about the person being labeled or the person doing the labeling?
Exactly. We'll look at, the cultural stuff that feeds this.
Like reality TV.
Definitely. And the psychological debates, what narcissism actually is.
Yeah.
And then, how our own need to sort of categorize people fits in. You'll hear about reality stars, philosophical ideas,
Great.
all to help you understand what's really going on when we talk about this new selfishness.
Okay, let's unpack that. The new selfishness. The essay starts with these examples that they hit you right away. Real gut punches.
They're designed to.
It talks about Allison Mathis, that Atlanta teen from MTV's My Super Sweet 16.
Oh, yeah, I remember that show.
Right. Demanding they shut down a busy street for her party, and she just giggled about ambulances having to go around.
Yes.
Her quote was just, "My Sweet 16 is more important than wherever they have to be." Chilling.
It really is.
Then there's the guy, the professional bad boyfriend. His website literally said, "I'm an asshole."
Seriously?
Yeah, next to a picture with a blank woman's face labeled "your face here." And he made a fortune insulting women.
Unbelievable.
And then the absolute most horrifying example, the mass murderer.
Yeah.
Killed 77 people.
Ugh.
And afterwards, he's smirking, complaining about his suffering, a cut on his finger, saying he did it all just to market his manifesto, over 1,500 pages. Wow. Hard to comprehend that level of self-focus.
Exactly. These examples, they paint this picture, right? Shamelessness, grandiosity, manipulation, it feels so cold. So what's driving this? What's behind that coldness?
Well, this is where the essay offers something really interesting, a core insight. It suggests that while these people seem so full of self, paradoxically, they might be empty inside.
Empty. How so?
The idea is that they've had to study other people's selves to kind of construct something that looks like a self. That sounds like one. The essay calls it selfiness.
Selfiness, that's a great term.
Yeah.
So it's a performance, a really convincing one.
Exactly. A simulacrum of a superpowered self, it says. And often it appears, qualitatively better than just a normal, ordinary self.
Huh.
And if you think about that in ethical terms, remember Kant.
Vaguely.
Yeah.
So your actions could be universal laws.
Yeah.
Treat people as ends, not means.
Precisely. Well, the narcissist, by this definition, acts in ways that if everyone did it would send the world straight to hell. They use people.
So it raises this really tricky question. How can these people be so charismatic, sometimes magnetic, but also give off this vibe that they're...
Well, the essay uses phrases like puppet, a clown, an animate corpse, anything that looks human but isn't. That uncanny feeling.
That uncanny feeling.
Yeah.
It connects to this idea of an epidemic, doesn't it? This sense that it's everywhere. But how do they actually measure something like that? Is it just a feeling or is there data?
Well, yeah, people definitely feel like there's an epidemic. And the official definition comes from the DSM, the psychiatric manual.
Right. Narcissistic personality disorder, MPD.
Exactly. Criteria like grandiosity, fantasies of success, needing admiration, entitlement, exploiting others, lacking empathy, the whole list.
Okay.
But the DSM-5 itself is kind of weird on prevalence, since it's between 0 and 5%. That's a pretty big range.
0 to 5%. That doesn't sound like an epidemic.
Not exactly overwhelming, no. But the essay points out how pop culture figures like Allison Mathis or that author Tucker Max get held up as proof it's rising. So where does the scientific claim of an epidemic come from, then?
Mostly from quantitative social psychology. There's this key tool, the Narcissistic Personality Inventory, the NPI, developed back in '79.
Okay, the NPI, what is it?
It's a survey, 40 pairs of statements, you pick one. It's designed to measure subclinical narcissism. So traits in the general population, not a clinical diagnosis.
Gotcha. Not diagnosing NPD, just measuring traits.
Right. And high NPI scores correlate with things like attention-seeking, aggression when criticized, taking more than giving, lower empathy, valuing fame.
Okay, that makes sense. Any other methods?
Yeah, there's also word counting, looking at cultural products over time.
Like books?
Exactly. Studies found since 1960 in American books a 42% increase in I and me and a 10% decrease in we and us.
Wow, that sounds significant.
They also noted more you and your, interpreting that as more individualism, too.
Okay, so NPI scores going up, more I language. That seems like evidence for a shift. But you said earlier, it's contested.
Hugely contested. This is where it gets really interesting. You have researchers like Jeffrey Jensen Arnett. He strongly criticizes the whole Generation Me idea. He argues today's young people are actually the most other-centered, generous, and empathetic generation yet.
Really? What's his evidence?
He points to things like declining car accidents, lower crime rates, increased volunteerism, lower teen pregnancy rates, and he argues millennials are the least racist, sexist, and homophobic generation.
Huh. That's a completely different picture.
It really is. And it makes you question the research itself. The essay brings up big problems in psychology like publication bias.
Where only the exciting, positive results get published.
Exactly. And the whole replication crisis. Remember that big meta study in 2015? Only 38% of psychology studies could even be replicated.
Wow, less than half. That shakes your confidence.
It really does. So if the basic tools and findings are shaky, how solid is this epidemic claim?
Good point.
And even the DSM-5, the big diagnostic manual, after like a decade of debate about maybe removing NBD entirely, they ended up keeping it pretty much unchanged. But then they also added this alternative, more flexible, trait-based diagnosis method in an appendix.
So even the experts are ambivalent.
It definitely suggests they weren't entirely sure it's a well-defined, useful category. There's internal disagreement.
Okay, so the science behind the epidemic is debatable, maybe even shaky, but the feeling is still there. This narcissism script, it feels so real. Why? Why are we all seemingly diagnosing each other?
That's such a key question. And the essay suggests it's not just about now, it's about how the idea of narcissism has evolved. And it points to the online world, what it calls the narcissphere.
The narcissphere, like forums and self-help sites.
Exactly. Articles, forums, even apps like No Contact. They give advice like, do not call them, move on, they're a lying manipulative at soul. It provides this instant framework, this script for understanding difficult relationships.
Like a quick fix explanation.
Sort of. And what's really wild is the story of Sam Vaknin. He wrote this influential self-published book, Malignant Self-Love, and basically popularized a lot of the language we use now, claimed to be a self-aware narcissist himself.
Okay.
But then when he actually took narcissism tests, he scored low.
No way. So he was performing narcissism.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How fluid the identity can be, maybe even performative.
Definitely.
And the essay connects this to the history of the concept, how its targets have shifted. You mentioned Freud earlier.
Right. He initially applied it to women and gay men.
Yes, seeing their self-sufficiency as a kind of arrested development. But later critics, like René Girard, argued Freud was kind of fooled.
Fooled how?
Girard argued narcissism isn't really a personality type, but more like the ordinary dynamic of all desire. We project our own fantasies onto people, and when they inevitably fail to live up to them, we call them fake or narcissistic.
Wow. Okay. So could this whole narcissism script we use, could it actually be about us? A way to project our own stuff, our fears, our disappointments onto someone else?
That's exactly what the essay suggests. It links it back to Freud's idea of the uncanny.
The creepy feeling.
Yeah, that unsettling feeling when something non-human, like a doll or a clown, looks too human. Or maybe when someone we perceive as a narcissist seems human, but off, beings on the edge of the human.
Okay.
And the essay proposes that maybe the narcissist's magic, their charisma, comes, at least in part, from us. From our projections.
That really hits home. The author even admits it, right? As an essayist writing I all the time, she worries that we, the readers, might think she's self-absorbed.
It gets personal.
And it points out how the gender of the archetypal narcissist shifts according to who's got the power of diagnosis. Think about Tucker Max again.
Oh, the asshole guy.
He later recanted his whole persona, blamed it on having a narcissistic mother. Neil Strauss pushed that theory too.
Ah, the blaming mothers trope.
But then you have the manosphere online, actively encouraging what they call pragmatic narcissism, teaching guys to copy narcissistic and sociopathic traits because supposedly these traits are hot.
Seriously, that's cynical.
There's even a phrase, a man who is full of himself is full of a woman's love. Basically, fake it till you make it, narcissistically.
Wow. It's quite a strategy. It really twists the whole idea around.
It does. And what about empathy? The script always says narcissists lack it, but is it that simple?
Neuroscience suggests it's more complicated. Much more. Studies show people with NPD can actually have high empathic accuracy.
Meaning they're good at reading people.
Surprisingly good, yeah. Even Tucker Max scored high on a mind-reading test, apparently. What they might lack isn't the ability to understand what someone feels, but rather compassion, or that feeling of sharing the other person's state.
Ah, so it's a difference between knowing and caring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Researchers sometimes call it cold empathy versus warm empathy. They can read the room, but they don't necessarily feel with the room.
That's a really crucial distinction, cold empathy.
It is. And the essay uses this metaphor, this splitting of people into good and bad, us and them. It says it happens at the edge of our empathy scale. Like chickens in an overcrowded coop pecking each other because there are too many unfamiliar faces.
So the internet, with its scale and speed,
It becomes like a giant laboratory testing for empathy, testing our ability for even basic recognition when we're overwhelmed by so many faces. It's pushing our limits.
that's a fascinating, if slightly bleak thought. Okay, let's bring it back to Allison Mathis, the super sweet 16 girl.
Right, the ambulance comment.
The essay doesn't just leave it at the TV portrayal. The author actually interviewed her.
Oh, really? What did she find?
Well, Allison explained the party was actually her father's idea, and MTV producers reached for material, used leading questions to craft that selfish persona.
Reality TV editing.
She said it was not necessarily made up, but it's not things that you thought of on your own. They pushed her into it.
Makes sense.
And in real life, she's married to a basketball player, Daquan Jones. They run a foundation helping kids in poverty. She has a lifestyle blog, sounds totally lovely, answers comments kindly. Oh, and she got a BA in psychology and wants to work with couples.
Wow. They're completely different from the TV image.
Totally. It just makes you think, doesn't it? About that gap between the screen and reality. How quick we are to judge based on an edited image. Because she looks evil, she must be evil.
That really lands the essay's final point, I think, about how we use these narratives. It argues the narcissism script encourages apocalyptic reasoning.
Apocalyptic reasoning, meaning?
Meaning we grab anecdotes, like Allison's TV moment, and slot them into this pre-existing story about the narcissism epidemic. It confirms our fears.
And makes us feel, what? Superior?
Maybe. Morally superior as the diagnosers and weary victims. And the essay adds another layer to Allison's story. She grew up in Atlanta, huge wealth inequality. She's a black woman in America, huge racial wealth gap. Which details actually matter for understanding an extravagant TV party? It's way easier to just slap on the label narcissistic than to think about systemic issues, about ambition in the face of hardship.
So it's a way of simplifying complex realities.
Exactly. It highlights this tension between different ways of knowing. There's the slow, nuanced work of therapy, understanding one person's life, versus the lightning speed of lab studies, surveys, reality TV, which might show trends, but they totally flatten individual complexity.
Yeah.
And the essay brings up the original meaning of apocalypse. Not disaster, but an unveiling, a tearing away of a veil to reveal truth.
Okay.
The narcissism script feels like it offers clarity, a solution to pain maybe, but maybe it also just numbs us. By making everything simple, villains and victims, it stops us from seeing the complex, messy truth underneath.
So ultimately, this whole idea of the selfishness of others, it's less a hard fact and more a feeling, a perception, shaped by the stories we tell.
And maybe shaped by our own internal stuff, yeah.
So, wrapping this up, it leaves us with this really profound thought, doesn't it? That maybe our obsession with diagnosing everyone else's selfishness, maybe it's actually reflecting something back about our own anxieties, our own desires. What if the real deep dive isn't into them, but into the stories we tell about them and the stories we tell about ourselves?
Absolutely. And the essay ends with this brilliant kind of satirical kicker, a proposed entry for the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 6th edition, 2026.
Oh, yeah. For diagnosing narcissists?
No, for diagnosing the diagnosers, the people who are constantly diagnosing others.
Get out. What are the criteria?
Things like spending large amounts of time in online research, seeking diagnoses for romantic partners, family members, and sometimes complete strangers.
Uh-oh. Hitting a bit close to home for some online searching.
Maybe. Also, believing that he or she is special and uniquely unselfish.
Yeah.
Having a grandiose sense of empathy, like exaggerating how well they understand people beyond any actual evidence.
Wow, flipping the script entirely.
Exactly. And the final irony, lacking empathy themselves. Being unusually quick to judge based on superficial stuff or a tendency to spring away in the middle of conversations with others, Basically, diagnosing others becomes their symptom.
That is sharp, really sharp.
It really brings it home. That feeling of the selfishness of others. Maybe it's just the feeling of time moving past you or the feeling of the center shifting. The knowledge was never under you.
Yeah.
It's a reminder, a powerful one, that maybe sometimes the blankness we see in other people, it's just a space we're filling with our own scripts, our own stories.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Lots to think about there. What stands out to you from this deep dive? How does it shift how you see selfishness, maybe how you talk about it, or even how you recognize bits of these patterns in yourself? Definitely something to mull over. Until our next deep dive.